So just the other day, I finished watching The Bear on Disney Plus. It's this like FX show. I don't know how new it is, but it's pretty new. Um, and it's essentially about this guy who is a chef, and he's done it all. He's like worked in like a Michelin star chef kind of like Michelin star restaurant kind of environment as like one of the top people there. He's like climbed the ladder, seen success as like a very legitimate chef, right? But then his brother dies, and he inherits his brother's restaurant, which is just like this tiny little sandwich shop in Chicago. And so, you know, that's the whole thing, right? He's got to learn how to run this place. Completely different environment. Already comes with like a whole cast of chefs that know the place. They've been cooking there for ages. So when this guy shows up to be like, it's my place now, that's kind of where conflict comes from and all that. But yeah, simple premise, but the execution, oh my god. This show is so like methodically planned and like skillfully executed. It's very impressive. Like, it's currently only one season long, and the story is completely self-contained within that season, to the point that I'd be more surprised if we got a season 2 than if we didn't, kind of thing. Like, it's one of those stories where the writer and the creator had just an idea, and the show was the best format to like execute that idea. Because yeah, each episode is specific, and like it has an endpoint kind of thing. It gets to where it needs to go. The look and the feel of the show is really, really interesting. It's very like impactful in that it cuts very jarringly, I guess, is the best way to, like, it's cut so super harsh, but like you're like, whoa, but like not in like a bad kind of way. It kind of just adds like weight, if that makes sense. But it also does like a lot of long takes. A few things come to mind, like there's specifically one scene where the main character Kami, the guy who inherited the restaurant, the sandwich shop, whatever you want to call it. There's one scene where he's just talking, and like I think it lasts like 4 minutes or something, which is dialogue. Like he's just looking at. It's not really the camera, but the camera is like close up on his face, and he's just going over it. He's talking about stuff relevant to the plot, which I won't spoil here. This is a spoiler-free review, but yeah, it's stuff like that. Just like big, long-winded stunts, and then doop into the next thing, and then maybe like a few cuts here and there. But it just, yeah, I think, like I said earlier, the best way to describe it is it just feels planned. Like, attention to detail is very fine with this show, and I think that's why I appreciate it so much, because like a show like of this caliber, maybe not caliber, of this quality, feels kind of rare these days, unfortunately, when like everything is so obsessed with being like as long as possible, like having longevity and being a story that can be told for decades or whatever. Like, it gets a bit tiring, and the quality is usually pretty rinse and repeat, but each episode kind of doesn't even have like a intro or outro or anything. Like, I think there's maybe one episode where there's a title card, and that kind of, that's, you'd expect like every episode to have that, right? Like, but I don't think it does. There's also one the second last episode of the season is really, really good. Like, it's obviously the penultimate to the show, and so it's got to build this ultimate like tension point, this climax of the show, and every episode up until now has been like 30 plus minutes or around the half hour mark. This episode is only 20. Like that's how specific I'm talking about. Like it exists for as long as it needs to, and then it moves on, kind of thing. Like it doesn't hold onto any one like moment or idea longer than it needs to, which I think is skillful because, like I said, it's long takes, right? So it's like this masterclass of balancing where, you know, it can demand attention kind of thing, and it can hold on these scenes, but at the same time, it'll just throw like a 20-minute episode that's like the best piece of media you've consumed in like the last 5 years kind of thing. Like it's crazy. It is crazy. And I can't remember, but it felt like one take, like beyond a certain point. Like once the ball gets rolling in the second last episode, I'm pretty sure, and this might not be true, but I'm pretty sure it's just one take, or at least it felt like it because it just kept moving through the kitchen, right? Like the camera just kept following different people around the kitchen, but like the story kept like moving, like progressing kind of thing with the motion. It was crazy. It's really good because it's like trying to build stress and like tension because it's a kitchen, it's a high octane area, and like the whole point of the show is like these people aren't gelling as well as they need to be to function as like a kitchen. Um, and that's never more present than in this penultimate episode when like it boils over kind of thing, right? Like it just gets intense. So that episode, very phenomenal. It, it, it's like just like a gem sandwich in between what is already a great show kind of thing. Like it's impressive start to finish the whole way. And the start of that episode, I'm pretty sure, is really good. There's a start to one of the episodes where it's like a radio announcement kind of thing, talking about Chicago. It's where the show is set. And it's like, yeah, just like kind of a news feed as like people are getting to work. And I'm pretty sure it's that episode because it's like showing how everyone's gonna get to this place of conflict, and then it ultimately ends with like, yeah, cool stuff. Another thing that I really like about this show, and this is kind of just like a personal aside kind of thing, is that this guy, Kami, he's got like trauma or whatever. I guess trauma is the best way to describe it, right? Like his driving point throughout the show that keeps like causing him to have like moments and stuff is this death of his brother. And so there's like a family dish tied to the restaurant that immediately out of episode 1 he refuses to cook, right? Like he's got all the like prep for it. And he's like, "Nah, I'm not cooking this. This place is gonna be different. I'm not doing that." And so that gives like the theming and the constant like underlying plot of like, this dish also represents this character's growth kind of thing. Like this dish is this character in a way. Um, it's more so just like a better way to put it is it's more so just like a physical embodiment of this character, if that makes sense. Beyond the character, like it's the physical. It's like a goal almost because the show ends with him cooking the dish, right? Like they move on, and that's where they go. They cook the dish, right? They've grown as people or whatever. The character has progressed and all that. But the dish itself is spaghetti, which is my favorite food. So I thought that was a cool little coincidence there, and it just had a little bit more meaning for me at least. But that's completely irrelevant. The show itself stands alone. It's excellent. Like I don't think you need to be like into food or even like the culinary scene to enjoy it because it's like just a good show in general. It's marketed at least on Disney Plus as like drama comedy, which makes sense. It is pretty funny. It takes itself very seriously, but it kind of uses the anger and the aggression of characters as the joke, if that makes sense. which I think is, yeah, it's pretty funny at times. There's a episode where like um, they're catering for a party, and yeah, they accidentally mess up, and there's this whole thing that happens. I won't spoil it, but um, that's a pretty funny episode. But yeah, I don't recognize any of the actors in the show. I don't know if that's just because I don't, I haven't seen shows like this. I'm not particularly into like drama TV or anything, so maybe they're just like go-to actors for this kind of story. But I haven't seen them around. The only only actor I have seen is the dude who plays Kami's brother in like flashbacks from when he's like still alive. And that's I forget his name. He plays Shane in The Walking Dead. Oh, it's Brad. Yeah, John Bernthal. Yep, that guy. Yeah, so he's Kami's brother, and it was really strange timing because before I watched this show, I watched The Peanut Butter Falcon. Excellent movie. I'll probably make a review on that sometime soon. But he also plays like a flashback figure in The Peanut Butter Falcon, only he's Shia LaBeouf's dad in Peanut Butter Falcon. So it was really strange to see him as like this guy that is like who gets remembered kind of thing, like, oh, I remember my brother or remember my dad kind of thing, like from both these movie and show respectively. I was like, well, that's a weird coincidence. But that I saw this dude like in the same role technically, not technically, but like essentially. Anyway, that's besides the point. Only dude I recognize. The rest of the actors are great. Like they're really good. They got good chemistry between each other. Um, Believably get mad at each other kind of thing. Like it's not cringe kind of thing. It's not like cringe when you just like see this dude going off his nut, like getting so mad because like you see where he's coming from kind of thing, and you also see how like the others are reacting to that situation. But yeah, it's just so good because of how like thought out it is. I think is the biggest merit, and then execution aside, because the execution's flawless, or pretty much. Like it's just yeah, it's a really enjoyable, pretty quick watch. Like it's only a few episodes. I want to say 8, around that 8 to 10 episode mark. And again, each episode 30 minutes, 40 minutes at most. I think the last episode's closer to an hour, like 50 something, but that's because it's the last episode's big special thing. But the pacing, yeah, really good. It just feels like one story because it is one story, and it doesn't feel like a long. It doesn't feel like a long movie or a short show. It just is the medium perfectly like utilized, in my opinion. Which is probably why it's getting close to the end of the year. It's probably my favorite show that I've seen this year. Right, like it's new this year. It's easily the best new thing I've seen this year. I'd say this is the best show I've seen this year. And yeah, go watch it if you have access to Disney Plus. I don't know if it's on other streaming services. It might be, but yeah, it's called The Bear. Very good. Well made.